Hello, I'm Doug, and I'm here to get you familiarized with your new electronic keyboard and to teach you how to use it right away. Because of the latest state-of-the-art electronics, it's got all kinds of easy play features, special effects, automatic bass, chords, rhythms, synthesized sounds, and even more. And even if you've never played a musical instrument before, you're going to be amazed at what you and your electronic keyboard can do. I'm going to take you through this program and have you playing and enjoying music with your electronic keyboard in no time at all. And it's going to be as easy as ABC. Speaking of ABCs, included in this package is a set of ABC key stickers. They're self-adhesive stickers that you can apply to the melody section of your keyboard. If you're not too familiar with the names of the keys, these stickers will help identify them at a glance. So when you hear this tone, turn the cassette player off and apply the stickers to your keyboard as shown on page 5. In fact, each time I request you to do something, you'll hear the same tone indicating to turn off the cassette so you can do it. Keep in mind that anytime you wish to stop the cassette, feel free to do so. When you're ready, turn the cassette player back on and continue. All set? Here's the tone. The next tone is optional, because if you haven't already done so, you may want to read your owner's manual in order to become as familiar as possible with all the features and controls of your keyboard. I can't possibly discuss every feature, every button, every control on your keyboard in the space of time on this tape, and as with anything new, it's always a good idea to check everything out. Okay, here's the tone, but if you don't want to stop the cassette at this point, just let it keep running. Look at the bottom of page 5. See the 5 notes C, D, E, F, and G? They have their letter names right inside the notes. These are notes that name themselves. If you have ABC key stickers on the keys, all you have to do is match the letter inside each note with the letter on the keys. Play those 5 notes just like this. Now you try it. Okay, play them again. But this time, don't play the D key. And hold the G key a little longer, like this. Try it once again. This time I'll say the letters, and you look at the keys and play along. Just follow me. Here we go. C, E, F, G, and hold it. C, E, F, G. That's the first part of When the Saints Go Marching In. You'll find that on the bottom of page 6. There are some more parts of well-known melodies on page 6. Try them. Wasn't that easy? There are even more melodies for you to play on pages 7, 8, and 9. See if you can fill in the correct letter names and then play them. You're ready for the next step to playing music. Melodies themselves are nice to play, but you might enjoy them a lot more with some accompaniment added. Chords are an important addition to the melody. They complement or embellish it to give it mood and feeling. Listen to this next example as I play Skater's Waltz. First, the melody only. Then, I'll add the chords. Chords make a difference, don't they? On page 10 of Getting Started, you'll see some words at the top, printed in darker ink. Let me explain and demonstrate some of those terms to you. The word chord is explained as 3 or more tones that sound pleasant when played at the same time. The first type of chord you'll use is a major chord. You'll learn a few other types later on. Here's an example of a major chord. The next 2 terms mentioned were rhythmic and continuous. Rhythmic means simply that the chord is played rhythmically, or is heard in conjunction with an automatic rhythm, like this. And continuous means with no rhythm, like this. Earlier, I said a chord is 3 tones that sound good when played together. This means you use 3 fingers to play each chord. I'll play the 3 tones one at a time, then together. Listen. If If you have an easy play or one-finger chord feature, you need just one finger to play chords. I've just turned on the Easy Play feature on my keyboard. Now I'll play the same chord, but with just one finger. They both sound the same, don't they? On page 11, underneath the top keyboard illustration, you'll notice two boxes with letters inside. Those are chord symbols. They appear in easy-to-play music to tell you which chord to play and when to play it. With your one-finger chord feature, all you have to do is press the chord key with the same letter name as the chord symbol. Keep holding the chord key until the chord symbol in your music changes. Or, as discussed in your book, use chord memory. If you have this feature, you'll probably want to use it often. Just press a chord key once and let go. The chord will continue to sound until you press another chord key. I'll play the song on page 12 of Getting Started so you get the idea. Watch the music as I play. Now you try it. Turn your one-finger chord feature on. Remember to hold the white melody notes longer than the black ones. There are some important musical facts on pages 13 through 16 of Getting Started. You may want to read these over now before we continue, and affix the rest of your ABC key stickers as shown on page 15. Let's review some of the things you just read. For instance, beats and time values. If you look back on the previous pages, you'll see some notes that are black and some white. Well, in addition to telling you which key to play, the way a note looks also tells you how long to hold each key. At the top of page 16 are 4 different kinds of notes. The first is a quarter note, in which the note head, that's the round part, is all black. It also has a thin line connected to it called a stem. A quarter note is held for 1 beat, like this, 1. The next note is a half note. Its note head is white and has a stem connected to it. A half note is held for 2 beats, 1, 2. The third note is a dotted half note and looks just like the half note except there's a dot next to it. This gets 3 beats, 1, 2, 3. The last note shown is a whole note, and it has a white note head and no stem. A whole note is held for 4 beats, 1, 2, 3, 4. The illustration under More Musical Facts tells you about the staff and its components. All of these things together tell you how long to hold each note in a song. The 4/4 time signature shown indicates there are 4 beats in a measure, and a quarter note gets 1 beat. To explain this further, the top number indicates the number of beats in a measure. The bottom number is sort of like the bottom number of a fraction. If you saw a number 1 over a 4, you would say 1/4 or 1/4. In music, the 4 on the bottom means the quarter note receives 1 beat. Now I'll play and count the example shown in the middle of page 16, which is the same song I played before, Mary Ann, only this time the notes are all placed correctly on the staff, showing their actual time values and divided into measures of 4 beats each. Notice I played the tied F notes correctly and held them for a total of 6 beats. Pages 18 and 19 contain some easy and familiar songs for you to play. If you take a look at them, you'll notice numbers near most of the notes. These are finger numbers for your right hand as described on page 17. These finger numbers will make it easier for you to play smoothly and sound more professional. But actually, they're just suggestions. If you want to use different fingers, then feel free to do so. Why don't you give those next 2 songs a try and come back to the tape when you're ready. Hear those drums? Not bad for a keyboard, is it? You know, just a few years ago, you would have needed a very expensive drum machine or a real drummer to do the kind of things you can do now with your portable keyboard. Now, just by pushing a couple of buttons, you've got some really great rhythm sounds. In fact, let's try one right now. First, read the material on page 20 of Getting Started. Then come back to me. Let's start with a very simple rhythm. Here's an example of the swing rhythm as shown on page 20. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. The song Amazing Grace on page 21 uses a waltz rhythm. A waltz always has 3 beats in a measure, so the time signature would be 3-4, a 3 over a 4. Listen to my keyboard's waltz rhythm while I count out a few measures. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now listen while I play the song so you get a feel for how the melody will fit in with the rhythm. Did you notice that I played the first note of the song without any accompaniment? That first note is called a pickup note. That first measure contains only 1 quarter note. Since there should be 3 beats to a measure in this song, that measure is incomplete. It's missing 2 beats. The 2 missing beats are always found at the end of the song, in the last measure. Look at the last measure of Amazing Grace. It contains 1 half note which gets 2 beats. These are the 2 missing beats from the first measure. The rhythm and chords will begin on the first beat of the first complete measure. The second measure contains 1 half note which gets 2 beats and 1 quarter note which gets 1 beat. It contains 3 beats total, so it is the first complete measure. This is explained in greater detail in the Exploring Automatic Features book. Try playing Amazing Grace yourself, and then come back when you're ready. If your keyboard has a feature called Synchro Start, you'll be able to use it very easily on songs that have pickup notes. Before you play a song, set your rhythm and turn Synchro Start on. You won't hear any rhythm until you press the first chord key. The rhythm will begin at the same time as the chord. This way, you can play the pickup notes without any accompaniment and the rhythm and chords will begin together. Why don't you try using this feature with a song on page 23, Michael Row the Boat Ashore. Then, if you haven't already done so, read the material on pages 24 and 25. It's useful information on rests, sharps, flats, and a different kind of chord. Let's review a little about rests. A rest has a time value just like a musical note, even though it has no sound. A quarter rest has the same value as a quarter note. A half rest has the same time value as a half note, and so on. Most songs use rests. Each new element you learn about playing your electronic keyboard helps to add interest to your playing. Seventh chords offer a different sound than a major chord. Listen to the difference between a G major chord and a G seventh chord. Here's G major. Now, G seventh. Many keyboard models differ in how to play these types of chords, but most require that you use more than one key for them. You should read your owner's manual on how to form these chords. Why don't you play the next song, a polka? Pay attention to the various fingering suggestions and a snappy optional ending. Before you play the song on page 29, I'd like to point out that it has a repeat sign at the end of it. This musical symbol tells you to go back to the beginning of the song and play it again. It's played exactly the same the second time. Now, the song on page 31 has a repeat sign at the end of the first line. This means that when you get to the end of the first line, you go back to the beginning and play it over. Again, it's played exactly the same as the first time, only the words are different. Then continue playing the rest of the song to the end as indicated. Why don't you practice those 2 songs? When you're done, I'll explain double endings. The song Red River Valley on page 32 has a double ending. Notice at the bottom of the song, the measures with a number 1 and a number 2 under brackets just above the staff. Those are the first and second endings for the song. You'll also notice repeat signs at the beginning of the song and at the end of the first ending. This means that you play the song from the beginning to the repeat sign in the first ending. Then you go back to the beginning and play all the song again until you get to the number 1 ending. This time, skip it and play the number 2 ending. This ends this song. In some cases, the first and second endings are found within a song and more verses would follow. Look at your music while I play this example for you. Okay, you give it a try. Then play the song Somewhere My Love and try the optional endings shown on pages 35 and 36. You may have noticed that in the third measure in the last line of Somewhere My Love, the numbers 2 and 1 above the staff were followed by arrows. They indicate which finger to play the C key with, depending on whether you wish to play an upward or downward glissando, a slide from one key to another. I'll demonstrate glissandos 2 times. The first time, I'll end with an upward glissando using my second finger as indicated. The second time, I'll play a downward glissando using my thumb. Here's the first one. Now, the second time with a downward glissando. This next tone is optional. Stop the tape if you want to practice the glissandos. The bottom of page 36 discusses minor chords, indicated by a lowercase m in the box. These kinds of chords also require an extra key on most keyboards. Again, read your owner's manual to learn about this function. I'll demonstrate the difference in sound for you. First, I'll play an A major chord, indicated by a letter A in the box. Then I'll play an A minor chord, indicated by the A and a lowercase m. First, A major. Then A minor. Doesn't the minor chord sound sadder, more expressive than the major chord? Play the next song and then read about eighth notes on page 39. I'll discuss them when you come back. Now that you've read about eighth notes, I'll demonstrate them. I'll play a measure of quarter notes while counting the beats. Then, I'll play a measure of eighth notes, also counting the beats. Here are the quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. In a 4-beat measure, there can only be 4 quarter notes, as each one gets 1 beat. Since an eighth note is half as long as a quarter note, 8 eighth notes can be played in one measure like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. However, if you see a song in 3/4 time, there can only be a maximum of 3 quarter notes in a measure, and therefore only a maximum of 6 eighth notes. You now know many of the basics needed to play a song, the fundamentals of music, and a few extra tricks for fun. Why not turn off the tape and play the rest of the songs in this book? When you're ready, come on back, and I'll tell you about some of those buttons and switches on your keyboard. You'll be creating and using sounds in no time. Didn't that sound great? Did you recognize the voice or instrument sound I used? It was the piano voice on my electronic keyboard. All I did was press a button and I had a different instrument. Your keyboard has many different musical instrument voices that sound just like the real instruments in an orchestra or even a rock band. Some of those voices are shown on page 4 of the Creating Sounds book. In this book, I'll discuss many of the instrument sounds available and the most effective ways of using them. Remember, there are no right or wrong voices to use with any particular song. Some may just sound better to you than others, and some do not fit a song, like a voice with sustain used for a fast song with eighth notes, which leads me to the subject of how to choose a voice. First, simply think of the song. You may not be able to recognize an instrument when you hear it, but if you think of the song and try a few voices, you'll probably notice differences between them and develop a preference. In time, you'll gain quite a good ear for different sounds. Read the material on pages 5 through 8. When you come back, I'll demonstrate certain voice characteristics for you. Press any voice button on your keyboard and then press any key. The voice you hear can be categorized into at least one group of voice characteristics. These are shown on page 8. Listen while I play a voice from each of the groups. The first voice, the organ, has a continuous sound. When you press the key, the voice continues to sound until you let go. Listen again. The next voice I'll play, the piano, has a decay. The tone fades away or decays even when I'm still holding down the key. Listen. I didn't let go of the key at all. The sound just decayed by itself. The piano voice has another characteristic besides the decay. It is percussive. It takes a stronger action like plucking, hitting, or striking in order to sound. Another percussive voice is the guitar. Listen to the guitar voice. Notice the strong attack and the decay. Other voices have a slow attack. Just as the percussive group has a strong attack, these other instruments are powered by air and have a slow attack. Since the air takes a little more time to reach its full power, the time it takes for the voice to sound is a little slower than the percussive group. Listen to the organ voice again. The instruments in the slow attack group are also continuous. The air that powers them continues to blow until the key is no longer being held. Why don't you try all of your instrument voices if you haven't already? But this time, try to figure out which category they fall into. If you have a voice that is not named on page 8, you can probably hear for yourself which characteristics it has. When you're done, read the material on page 9. Then I'll demonstrate some special effects. Portamento is great for songs with an Hawaiian or outer space theme. Its effect is a sliding sound from one note to the next. The voice I used with this effect was the Hawaiian guitar voice because it had a light tropical sound, just like the song. Let me demonstrate what the song would sound like with another voice, the piano, still using portamento. Part of the song Theme from Star Trek can be found on page 44. It's a great song to use portamento with. You may want to try it later. Look at the top of the chart on page 9. The first two effects, vibrato and tremolo, are very similar in their definition. Vibrato is a rapid change in pitch. The sound is actually a change in notes. Tremolo is a rapid change in volume. The pitch stays exactly the same, but the volume gets softer, then louder, very quickly. I'll demonstrate the differences for you, but you'll need to really listen for it, because when they are actually used, the differences are sometimes difficult to notice. You'll hear a vibrato on voices in the string violin, woodwinds, reeds, and brass families. Listen while I press and hold a key using my string voice. You won't hear it at first, but as I hold it longer, you'll hear the vibrato come in. Now here's an example of tremolo. This effect, if you have it, was used a lot on organs. So I'll demonstrate it with the organ voice. The chorale effect is just a slower tremolo. Again, with the organ voice, it's very dramatic. That's the end of side A. Stop the cassette and turn it over. Sustain is used with any voice you want, but it's most effective with percussive voices. Since by nature these voices fade away by themselves, the sustain effect, as its name suggests, sustains the tone, makes it last longer. This adds a flowing, softer sound to ballads using the piano or guitar voices. Listen to the beginning of Greensleeves. I'll use the guitar voice, first without sustain, then with sustain. Makes quite a difference, doesn't it? Now I'll use the same example, but this time I'm going to add reverb, an echo effect. Now, the same part, the same effects, but I'll add the chorus effect to make it sound like more guitars. And the same part with stereo. The sound actually will come out of more than one speaker. If you want to try all of these effects yourself, you'll find part of the song The Rose on page 29. You can use as many or as few effects as you want on any song. If you feel you'd like to add something to the song, you can add on effects until you like how it sounds. And if you think that you're using too many effects, you can always leave something out. Let your own ear be your guide. Use the effects you like and leave out the ones you don't. Why don't you try playing The Rose or Love Theme from St. Elmo's Fire, both on page 29, and experiment with your effects. Then read the information on page 10 and come back to the tape. The definitions and chart you just looked at are not rules, only suggestions. You may find it a helpful guide if you can't decide which kind of voice to use, if you wish to use a different voice than what is suggested in your music, or if you just want to experiment. If the song you are playing has a soft, solo, general sound, most of the voices in the soft solo column will sound appropriate for the song. This will also help you if a song lists a voice suggestion and you don't have that particular voice on your keyboard. Why don't you pick out a few excerpts from the following pages and play them without rhythm for now? Use the voice suggested if you have it, then try other voices from the chart. You may find you like your own choices better. When you're done, read page 11 on automatic rhythms. Then come back and I'll demonstrate them. Okay, now you're going to take what you know about automatic rhythm one step further. You've learned how to use your keyboard's different voices to create a mood and general sound. Now you can add another element, your rhythm, to complement that sound even more. Look at the song on the top of page 13, Too Fat Polka. The suggestions before the song are to use a clarinet voice, medium fast polka, and create a bright and brassy general sound. I'm going to play another polka, the Jolita polka, which calls for those same musical suggestions. But I'm going to alter some of these elements to demonstrate how each one interacts with the others to create sounds. First, I'll play a few measures as it is suggested. Now, I'll change the rhythm to rock instead of a polka. Not much of a polka, is it? Now, here it is with the polka rhythm, but an electric guitar voice. Hey, wasn't that the Eddie Van Halen polka? Why don't you play Too Fat Polka and the rest of the excerpts in this book? Change elements where you wish. Have some fun with them. Don't be afraid to try out different sounds. Part of playing music is being creative. Look at the Exploring Automatic Features book. The first 11 pages are review on what you've already learned, and then a more detailed explanation of automatic rhythm. Read through those pages, and when you come back, I'll discuss some of the other features. On page 8, you read about a feature called a tempo indicator or downbeat indicator. It may even be called something different. But its purpose is the same. It counts the beats in a measure and generally indicates which beat is the first beat in a measure. You'll see the first beat in a measure referred to as the downbeat. There are actually 4 downbeats in a measure that's in 4/4 time. 1 downbeat for every beat in the measure. When you have eighth notes in a measure and you count 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and you're actually counting 4 downbeats. The 1, 2, 3, 4 and 4 upbeats, the ands. However, for simplicity and understanding, the only downbeat referred to in this series will be the first downbeat of a measure. So when you think of the word downbeat and are instructed to do something in relation to that downbeat, think only about the first beat in the measure. Earlier I discussed chord memory. If you have this feature, you'll probably want to use it often. Since your left hand won't constantly be busy holding down a chord, you'll have more time to prepare for the next chord. This is especially helpful if you have to play minor and 7th chords. You can use the extra time to find the additional keys you need for those chords. Why don't you try the Jingle Bells example on page 13 using your chord memory feature? Then read through pages 14 and 15. I'll meet you at the song excerpt starting on page 16. I want you to hear how you can use 3 different rhythms and still make one song sound really great. I'll use a song that was used back in your Getting Started book. The song Aura Lee was made popular by Elvis Presley under the title Love Me Tender. I'm going to play just the first line of that song, first with a slow swing beat, then a slow rock, then a ballad. Here it is with the swing beat. Now the slow rock. And the ballad. I think they all sounded pretty good, but you may have developed a preference just from listening to them all. The songs on pages 16 and 17, both To Each Other and The Way We Were, are both pretty easy because they're slow. If you haven't already played them, you may want to do that. You may or may not have used the rock or disco rhythms yet, but I have a couple of helpful tips for you when using them. First, play the song a few times, using no rhythm at all. As you feel more comfortable with the melody and timing of the notes, add the rhythm. It's always a good idea to count out the beats and the measures as you play. This helps you to feel a beat and hear a melody fitting in before you play the song. Now just listen to my rock rhythm. I'll count out loud a few measures without any melody, just to get the feel of it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Why don't you try the songs Night Shift and Dancing in the Street on pages 18 and 19? Then I'll discuss some tricky timing on page 20. The songs on pages 20 and 21 have rests on the first beats instead of notes. You may think this is nothing tricky, but sometimes, if you're not expecting it, it can throw you off a bit. So just a little preparation beforehand is recommended. When playing songs of this sort, count out a measure or two for yourself. Make sure you start your rhythm on the downbeat of the first measure, even though you don't play a note until the second beat. It's really easy if you just think about a song and look it over before you actually play it. Play these two excerpts yourself, and then read pages 22 and 23. There's a little more about pickup notes and synchro start. I'll demonstrate some more examples of pickup notes. You played When the Saints Go Marching In at the beginning of the tape. Well, the first three notes you played were actually pickup notes. There were 3/4 notes in the first measure, and the time signature is 4/4. That first measure is missing one beat. If you look at the example on page 23, you'll see that the last measure of the song only has one beat. This beat is missing from the first measure. Now I'll play that line with no accompaniment for the first three notes. My chord accompaniment will start on the first complete measure. Why don't you play the second example, Clementine? Then play the next three song excerpts on pages 24 and 25 using your synchro start feature and beginning your chord accompaniment on the first complete measure. With my arpeggio feature on, it sounded like I was playing a lot of notes, but my keyboard was actually doing most of the work. You may have a button or switch that actually says arpeggio on it. If you don't worry, because you probably have this feature and don't even know it. It may be built into your ballad rhythm or slow rock, and even your waltz. Why don't you find out? Turn on your ballad or slow rock rhythms, and then press a chord key and hold it down. Here's what my keyboard's arpeggio sounds like. My arpeggio is in my slow rock rhythm. An arpeggio can be played in hundreds of ways. The notes in an arpeggio are all notes that are used in the chord indicated, and they're played one at a time. They don't have to be played in any particular order. They can have any pattern the player wants, or in this case, that the keyboard wants. You heard the arpeggio on my keyboard. It may sound different than yours. The example in the middle of page 26 is different too. I'll play this one for you. Listen. If you press a C chord key, the arpeggio will contain only notes in a C chord. If you press another chord key, your arpeggio will change too. I'll demonstrate this with three different chords. This time, I'll play it with my waltz rhythm. The arpeggio will sound in 3/4 time, and will have a different pattern than my slow rock or ballad arpeggios. Makes me sound like a regular concert pianist, doesn't it? Okay, so it doesn't. Anyway, go ahead and play the songs on pages 27, 28, and 29, and then I'll demonstrate the variation and fill features. If you have the variation feature on your keyboard, your accompaniment possibilities will be at least doubled. Listen to my rock rhythm for a few measures. Now I'll press my variation button. I've got a whole new accompaniment sound from one button. Some keyboards have several variations of one rhythm, which expands the rhythm sounds even more. Look in your owner's manual to find out if you have this function and to what extent. If you have a fill feature on your keyboard, you'll be able to add some drama and variety to places in a song that would otherwise be inactive. I use the term inactive because there is time to press a button in these places. It may be that just chords, or just rhythm, or just a melody note held for several beats is all that is contained in a measure. Look at the song excerpt Bill Bailey at the bottom of page 32. Notice the fourth measure contains just one whole note and a dark letter F above the staff. That's an appropriate place for a fill. I'll play the first three measures with a chord and rhythm. On the fourth measure, I'll press my fill button on the first beat. Listen. Why don't you go back to pages 30 and 31 and read about phrases, which give you a guide as to where fills would be appropriate. Then try Bill Bailey yourself. I've got a few other features to demonstrate when you're done. Look at the excerpt from Open Your Heart on page 33. You'll notice two measures of melody notes, then two measures of just chords and rhythm. Either or both of those inactive measures would sound very active with a fill. The fill feature on my keyboard only goes for one measure. I'd have to press my fill button twice, or press it once and keep holding it through both measures. Why don't you try playing this example, once without the fills, then a second time with the fills added. You know, I can't even play a drum solo like that with two hands, but I just played one with one finger. These are the kind of features that really make playing a keyboard fun. Another feature you may have is intro and ending. These features are becoming more common as new models of keyboards are introduced. Most often, the intro feature is included in the fill feature. If your keyboard doesn't have intro, you can use the fill instead. Read your owner's manual to find out if you have intro and how it works. As the name suggests, the rhythm intro feature creates a measure or two of introduction before you begin playing the melody. A musical introduction is an actual written section of music that you would play before the melody starts. I'll give you an example of this kind of intro later. First, I'll start the swing rhythms. Let it play for one measure, then add a measure of intro for Bill Bailey. That's a nice way of letting the listener know you're going to begin a song. If you have an ending feature on your keyboard, you'll also be able to let the listener know when the song is finished. Instead of having to turn the rhythm off, you simply press the ending button when the song is over, or on the last measure of the song, and your keyboard will play a measure of drums and chords, and then stop by itself. I'll play a measure of rhythm and chords, and then press the ending button. If you don't have the ending feature, the smoothest way to end a song is to let the rhythm sound for one extra measure after your melody or last measure has ended. Then turn the rhythm off after the last beat in that measure. Why don't you read pages 34 and 35, which contain some extra hints and suggestions. There's a really fun excerpt to play on page 35, so experiment with that one. Then you'll be ready for some more complex rhythms. Up until now, you've been using straightforward rhythms, like rock, disco, swing, waltz, and so on. But there are some rhythms that are a bit more complex. They are more interesting, detailed, and generally have more going on in them than the rhythms you've been using. These are usually the rhythms with Latin beats and names, like samba and rumba. In a rock or swing beat, you'll hear a bass drum, snare drum, and cymbals. But in Latin rhythms, you'll not only hear those, but you may also hear congas, bongos, and maracas, maybe even more. That's a lot of instruments to hear at the same time. Because you have so many different sounds and patterns to listen to, it's more difficult to count the beats and play a melody. You may find yourself wondering, which beat is the first beat of a measure? When should I start the melody? The answer is actually pretty simple. You may need to just sit and listen to the rhythm by itself for a while. Watch the tempo light, indicating the first beat of the measure. Try to hum the melody, fitting it into the rhythm. When you feel you've got the beat, try playing the melody, or just the chords by themselves. Take your time and give yourself the chance to feel the song before you play. A nice thing about these rhythms is that if you don't have one of them, it's easy to substitute another, even though each one is different. To demonstrate this, I'll set my tempo speed right in the middle and play 2 measures of each of my Latin beats. Here's the samba. Now, the rumba. And the bossa nova. Now, if I didn't have a samba, I could set my rumba at a faster tempo and use it instead. Of course, if I didn't have a rumba, I'd slow down my samba. Listen, here's my samba rhythm again. Now here's the rumba set on a fast tempo. If you run into this problem, simply listen to the rhythms available. Experiment with them at different speeds until you find one to fit the song. I mentioned earlier that you could have a musical intro as well as a rhythmic intro. There's an example of this on page 39. The song Papa Don't Preach has a 6-measure introduction before the melody actually begins. In that music, there are several suggestions as to where to add fills, when to begin rhythm, and so on. Read page 38 before you play the song. Then come on back when you're done. The last section in this book deals with bridges, choruses, and changing rhythms. When you become more familiar with the features on your keyboard and how to use them, you'll find yourself planning where to use them almost automatically. Thinking of the sounds and rhythms to use, when to add effects, when to use fills and breaks, will help your planning if you understand the structure or format of the song. This is called song form. All songs have a form. There are many different forms a song can take, but each one is structured within a series of verses and a chorus. If you'd like to stop the tape now and read through page 43, you'll probably have a better understanding of the next example. I'll play a well-known Christmas song for you, not found in your book. I just want you to listen. You'll notice some parts of the song are the same and others are different. Here it is. The example of a song form in your book shows the AABA form. The song I just played is in the ABAB form. The song has several verses, the first part, and in this case, the A part. After each verse, the chorus, or B part, is repeated. Listen again as I point out each part. Here's the first verse, the A part. here's the chorus, the B part. It sounds different from the rest of the song, doesn't it? It's important to listen for these sections of songs. It gives you a better idea of where changes in rhythm or voices would sound best. The last song in the book is one in which a rhythm change could occur before the first verse. The part before the verse would be considered a bridge, which in this song is a nice lead-in to the verse and is not repeated. In some songs, there may be a bridge right after the verse and before the chorus. If you're going to make changes, you should make them between these parts, where the difference will be more noticeable. You are probably very anxious to begin playing full songs, and there's a whole series of easy ABC letter music books with some great songs. Whatever your interest, rock, pop, country, standards, it's all there in the series. You'll find a list of all the excerpts contained in this kit and the books the full songs can be found in. I hope I've helped you better understand your keyboard and given you some valuable suggestions on making the most of your time playing it. Just remember to listen and let your own ear be your guide and have fun. That's what music is for. Oh, one last suggestion before I go. Practice, practice, practice. The worst thing that can happen is you'll get better.